Hello, everyone, and welcome to our District Administration Web Seminar here today, which is entitled How to Make Classroom Tech Sustainable and Flexible, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor here today, Samsung. Now, before we get started, I would like just to share a few housekeeping items with all of you. If at any time during our presentation you need any technical support today, please use the chat panel, which you can find on the right side of your screen at the bottom. Then select on my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, and then just type your message and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I'm also about to submit a phone number as well as access code in the chat that you can dial into if you want to listen in privately or if you don't have any speakers. So look out for that. Just put it in. We will also be welcoming any questions that you have here today with a Q&A session that will be taking place at the end of the presentation. To submit a question, you can do so by using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom right side of your screen, and then send your questions to all panelists. If you currently don't see the chat or the Q&A panels, look again to the right side of your screen at the bottom, then click the expand triangle, which is directly in front of the panel name, and that will make sure you'll be able to see if you have access to it. Also, the last point I'd like to make is that if you would like to access the webinar at a later time, you'll be pleased to know that everyone who is registered, as well as all of you who are attending here today, you will all receive an email with a link to the slides, as well as an archive recording. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our panel of speakers. With us today, we have Dr. Micah Shippey, Anthony Alexander, and John McAndrews. But rather than me telling you who they are, I'll let them share their background. Let's start with you, Micah.
Thanks, Stephen. Hello, everyone. My name is Micah Shippey. I'm the Director of Educational Technology Consulting and Solutions at Samsung. I come from the education space with 22 years of teaching experience, 7 years of ed tech consulting experience, and some work in higher ed as well. It's my pleasure to lead a team of instructional designers that are delivering professional development to schools and educational organizations across the United States. And I'll pass that off to Anthony Alexandre, who will tell us a little bit about himself.
Thank you, Micah. Hello, everyone. I'm Anthony Alexandre. I was an 8th grade teacher for a while, so worked with middle school students. I'm currently working with Samsung, providing professional development for teachers as they integrate whiteboards into their classrooms. Consider myself looking to be able to advocate for teachers and to kind of learn from them as well. Oh, passing it on to John.
Thanks, Anthony. Hello, everybody. John McAndrews. I'm a technical manager at Samsung. I've been with Samsung for 7 years. Unlike Micah and Anthony, I'm new to the education vertical. I've only been working in it for 2 years, but previous experience in the past 20 years, I've been working in network and infrastructure technology. So I'm kind of the person that supports them from a technical perspective to help ease the transition of technology as it relates to education.
Perfect. Thank you for that, for providing your backgrounds for all of us, for sure. So the format of today's webinar, it will be a fireside chat on the topic, as you know, of making classroom tech sustainable and flexible. I'll just ask a question, which will jumpstart a conversation among our group of expert panelists. Also, there will be some polls sprinkled throughout the webinar today, which we would love for you all to take part in as well. And speaking of polls, before I ask today's first question, I would like to start with a poll, which I am launching right now. So our first poll is fairly simple. Basically, how many times in the last 5 years have you updated your classroom technology? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, or more than 5 times? So please just take a few seconds to answer this question, and then we'll get started. We have a few seconds left, so excited to see the results. Okay. All right, I just put the results up there for all of you to see. So while you start taking that in, I will ask my first question. And this one is a two-parter. First, I'd like to know what some of the biggest challenges for keeping classroom technology up to date are. And two, since there is a lot of hype around interactive technology in schools, what are the real benefits to bringing interactivity into the classroom? Anthony, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the challenges to keeping technology updated in the classrooms is just, technology is constantly changing. Teachers are constantly hearing about new things that they may want to try and test out in their classrooms that they want to use to bolster, what's happening in the class, with students especially. So I think, testing things out, experimenting with things and figuring out is this what I want to use or not. And the other thing is teachers may want to have a piece of hardware in their classroom, but they're not necessarily at the forefront of making some of those decisions sometimes or getting those things in as quick as they would like to. So I think that might be a challenge. Second part of the question, I think that bringing technology into the classrooms, what it does is it gives students something that is familiar to them, right? Because they're staring at screens, at home, various forms, tablets and phones and things like that. So when you bring technology into the classroom that they're used to being around, it engages them more and causes them to be more invested in their work in the classroom setting.
Perfect. Thank you. John, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. Yeah. So looking at it more from a technical perspective, or at least the experience I've had with working with educational institutions and teachers, some of the big challenges for it is just the overall IT staff. A lot of school districts have limited staff or limited capability to actually manage this technology. So you have to make it simple, and the adoption feature has to be very easy, especially for teachers. If you bring in complex technology that they're not used to using, they're not going to use it from that perspective. And then another piece of it is that when you start looking at specifically at interactive flat panels or technology like this that you're bringing into a school district, they're going to be displaced geography in different locations. So manageability is a big key component of it. You want to be able to remotely manage this type of technology from a centralized location. So if a teacher doesn't have an issue in a classroom at a certain school, you're not having to send the tech over there to fix it. And then lastly, the piece from interactive whiteboards is collaboration. One of the nice things that we've seen, especially after a post-pandemic, as students are coming back into the classroom, they've been used to working in sort of a hybrid model. Now with the interactive flat panel, it gives the teachers the capability to really engage the students and have them come up and work on the board and be able to collaborate not only with the teachers, but their fellow students.
Perfect. Yeah, Micah, want to jump in?
Wow, those two guys are tough acts to follow. They pretty much crushed it. There's a lot that goes on with classrooms and shifts and pedagogy changes related to technology. For a while, 10 years ago, everything was about the app. Could I be on my iPad? Could I download an app? How do I distribute apps to teachers in the classroom? And we're seeing a shift with things being very much web-based. We're still using the word app, but we're not talking about the app store. We're talking about apps like Google Docs and Google Classroom, for example. And so having devices that allow teachers to work on their cloud-based web apps is really, really important, as well as having devices that can scale up with new devices. So as John pointed out, having the ability to have an infrastructure in place that can be scalable relates to what Anthony talked about with bring your own device. Students are using all these devices at home. We want them to be able to continue to bring those to school and learn to be really productive with those devices and get a little deeper into the power of the technology at their hands.
Definitely. Yep, definitely great. Anything else you guys would like to add to that conversation? You all three said great stuff, but I don't know if you wanted to play off of each other a little bit or.
Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Micah said, he brought up an excellent point, and Anthony did as well. These students are having their own personal devices, whether it be, mobile devices, tablets, computers, Chromebooks, to be able to bring this type of equipment back into the classroom and have it integrate seamlessly with the interactive displays. If there's a lot of complex works or things that teachers actually have to do to get it up and running, it takes their attention away from the class, and it really doesn't benefit the students. So really seamless integration, and as Micah pointed out, to be able to scale up to support it across the entire school district.
Definitely. Awesome. Now, before I move on to the next part, if anyone from the audience here have any questions, based on our first question and would like to hear more, please just submit it in the Q&A and we will address it at the end of the webinar. So now I want to do another poll question just to jumpstart all this for everyone to answer. Let me just launch that now. Awesome. So as you can see, what IT support does your team need the most? Is it training, on-demand remote, on-demand in person, integrating older technology, or setup? Again, please take the time to answer our poll question and we will get back to the conversation. I can see some people are putting in their answers now, so great. We have a few seconds left. All right, perfect. Now I will launch the results. And before I go into our next question, are you surprised by these poll results, or do they pretty much align to what you were expecting?
Yeah, this is pretty much what I expected to see is a need for training and support. We're seeing an increased demand for on-demand training that you can access anytime, anywhere through various platforms. That being in person is really interesting, and so that helps with having a large organization like Samsung that can help regionally with organizations that need support to get to them quicker.
Want to add, coming from the perspective of being in the classroom and knowing what it's like for, a piece of equipment to be rolled into the classroom and they kind of just tell you, this is how you plug it into the wall. And then next time you hear from anyone is when you're trying to troubleshoot something, right? And so it really is, you're doing all of the learning on your own, but, having some sort of a touch point where, someone's going to come in and actually teach you not just how to operate, but how to use this, in your classroom in a meaningful way is extremely important. And I think that I think that's what teachers are needing in terms of training, right? So yeah.
Perfect. All right. So if no more responses to the poll, I will move on to question 2. So what are some of the most important points to consider when purchasing new classroom technology, technology such as interactive displays, for example? And with that in mind, what kinds of software as well as hardware, work best for building future forward classrooms? John, would you like to start with that?
Sure. Oops. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting when you did the first poll, when we sort of talked about what the refresh rate is relates to information technology or that type of technology, and people came in at 3 and then some at 2. We didn't see any at 5. One thing that I've really been working in the education space is that really the longevity of the equipment, because unlike typical commercial environments to where they buy standalone displays, they'll go typically through a refresh rate of every 2 to 3 years. Education, normally it's going to be a little bit longer. So most of the environments that we work with, the minimum they want a 5-year warranty on it, and that needs to be an on-site warranty. So I think when you're considering technology, you definitely want to look at from a hardware perspective to make sure that technology is going to last for that 5 years. And if it doesn't last, that you're working with someone who will be able to actually do support the warranty and to be able to swap that out. And then from a software perspective, again, I always hit on this ease of use. You've got to keep things very simple for teachers to be able to get up and running in no time and learn the software. If you make it very complex or you add a lot of bloatware and the teachers have to go to different places and interact with displays, again, they're going to push it out of the way and go back to what they traditionally know, which is just a traditional whiteboard and user market. So simplicity is a really key from a software perspective.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense for sure. Micah, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would just echo John's point about the warranty and a company being around long enough to actually support that warranty. So, there's a lot of options out there for schools looking to buy equipment. And one thing that we want to ask ourselves is, is this a new organization? Have they been around for a while? How stable are they? How many times have they been acquired? Will they be here if the warranty needs to be addressed? And so that's a really, really big deal. Yet at the same time, part of the value add is that they can offer custom bespoke training, because without training, technology dropped in a classroom, like John was saying, or Anthony was saying, you just plug it in the wall and then go. Well, not exactly. We do want something that's simple, that has a user interface that's easy to adopt and has a low barrier to entry. But we also know that this involves a pedagogy shift for our classroom teacher to understand that this is more than a display. This is a way to engage students in a whole new way that requires training as well. So from an IT perspective, there's training about setting up the devices for hardware and software, but also for the teachers, you want an organization that can back up that hardware and software with boots in the ground, grassroots training.
Definitely. Perfect. And Anthony.
I mean, again, just echoing some of those same ideas on, I guess piggyback off of some of those, just the idea that like, again, as a teacher in the classroom and I have a piece of hardware, I don't know what I'm going to be doing next year or the next 2 years as far as software goes. I might have a completely new, trajectory with, this is the way that I want to approach this class now. And the hardware needs to be able to keep up with that. I don't, it shouldn't be the case that now I need a whole new piece of hardware because it's not compatible or something like that. So you kind of want a device that's open to those changes. And so 5-year warranty is one thing, the product is going to last, but it will keep up with the new software that I intend to use in the classroom. So that's another piece of compatibility.
Awesome. Perfect. And anything else that you want to add to that? I mean, besides, interactive displays, what are some other important points to consider when purchasing any new classroom technology?
And there's just to add on to the point that you bring up, but when you start looking at other types of technology within the classroom, whether it be mobile devices, Chromebooks, laptops, I think a key thing, especially for the IT school administrator or the people that are purchasing the product, is to make sure that they can fulfill these orders. Because a lot of time right now we have a lot of logistical issues and things like that. And so a company or a school district may say, all right, we're going to buy 1,000 Chromebooks, but if they're not going to be delivered till next year, that could be a big issue. Same thing goes for interactive flat panels. You want to make sure that that if the company does commit, that they can deliver that technology in a timely fashion and not be delayed on it.
Awesome. Perfect. And I see we have some questions coming in already for the Q&A, which is always great. That said, if any of you have any other questions based on the last question that we just came in, please feel free to submit it into the Q&A so we can get to it at the end of the presentation. All right. So for our next question here, describe the ideal IT and training, support schools should seek out for their technology investments. Like, what about training? What should you expect from full service support? Any of you can jump in on that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in with that one. I think that a full educational solution is a simple equation of hardware, software, support, and community. And so when you're purchasing from a large organization, that has a reputation for good quality equipment, that's great. Now, how do you sustain adoption, or how do you grow adoption from your teaching staff so that they're maximizing the use of those products? And that's where support and training comes into play. So having a training that's comes with the devices or included with the devices in a bundled format as an introductory level is very important. And then how do you make that a longitudinal relationship, as opposed to what we used to call in the ed tech industry drive-by PD? Relational support is really, really important. And so you have this initial PD, you have a point of contact for your professional development training, and then someone like Anthony, for example, serves as a point of contact and a trainer for schools. And yet continual professional development on a monthly basis, even virtual, is really, really important. And then finally, adding to a community and having a like-minded educators around the planet that are using similar products that can say, here's a pro tip on how I leverage this tool in my classroom. That's iron sharpens iron right there. That's the kind of stuff that we want to make sure that we curate with our offerings, and we want to make sure that schools are looking for that.
Awesome. Perfect. Anthony, want to jump in?
I mean, honestly, I don't think I could have said any of that any better. I think it's absolutely true. You don't want drive-by PD where, you feel supported for a little and then, there's certain things you don't know to ask certain questions in the very beginning. And as you're teaching and as you're going through, using a new device, you might say, wait a minute, can I do this? Or I ran into this hiccup. You need support. And then also, I mean, I go into the schools and I deal with teachers who have questions, but then I may learn something from one school that I can share with another, right? And so that's this idea of community that we can build, where there's this, like Mike is saying, that there's a constant, we're all kind of learning how to use this and get the most out of it for our classrooms, what's best for our students.
Perfect. And you, John?
Yeah, just Mike and Anthony couldn't have said it better, especially coming from a propeller head's point of view. Like, I was interested when we did the poll, setup never came in. I could come on site, get everything configured, get everything up and running, but if you don't have that professional development offering, the teachers, again, they may not use it for a little bit and then kind of stray away. But to be able to have that PD, to have fellow teachers that come on, instruct them and say, hey, this is how I use it in a classroom, is very beneficial versus someone like myself coming on and running through on, this is how you use the product, and then go with it. At least they could relate on, from a teacher perspective, to fellow teachers on how to use this technology to improve the learning in a classroom.
Stephen, one of the ways that we think about this is with technology, it's common to talk about educational technology being integrated in a classroom. And so if we're very purposeful about the way we talk about it, we want to think about adoption. And so adoption is where the classroom teacher is making a choice to really invest in a product, saying this product is going to be part of my regular everyday practice. If you think about the pencil, for example, the pencil has been so well adopted in education, we no longer say teaching with a pencil. We just say teaching and the pencil's there. And so with interactive displays that have been fully adopted in the classroom, the teacher is not going to say, I'm teaching with my interactive display. It's just seen as part of their everyday practice. And so through a support network, through a community, through high quality professional development training, educators will shift to adopting these tools rather than integrating. No IT department wants to see a lot of work and effort being brought into bringing amazing equipment to a school that collects dust. I've heard of early laptop programs 25 years ago. They're using IBM PCs. One school got listed as the top school in the country for technology, and all the administrators complained that the laptops became paperweights. We can't have that. We want to see investment for schools really changing practice through the choice of adoption of the technology rather than the forced integration that often comes with shared decision making.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And again, more questions coming in through the Q&A, so I appreciate that. But if there's any other anything you want to follow up on, or people in the audience about ideal IT and training support that schools should seek out for their technology investments, please feel free to submit it into the Q&A, and we will ask them later on in the webinar. Okay, and now we've come to our next and final poll question before we continue on. I will launch that now. So what support does your school provide teachers to successfully implement technology into their classrooms? Does your school provide online resources? Does it provide group training? One-on-one training, ideas and curriculum outline, or maybe are you unsure about it? Again, please take the time to answer this question and we'll move right along. We have a few seconds left. I'm going to keep it open. I still see someone else in progress, so I'll keep it there. Okay, perfect. I will share those results now. And before going on to the next question, I would be interested in your feedback from any of you if these results are surprising or anything like that. If you'd like to comment on them.
Yeah, this is what we've seen. We've seen a lot of schools have built an awesome infrastructure of coaches right at their school level. They've identified early adopters that people will listen to, and they've empowered them to do turnkey training on a regular basis. We want to make sure that those people are also being given what they need to grow and scale as well.
Awesome. Perfect. All right, I will move on to the next part. So my next question, what are some, unique ways to integrate interactive technology with current teaching techniques, all in an effort to elevate classroom learning. Really interested in this one. Unique integrations are always great to hear about. So I'd love to hear that from you guys. Anthony, you want to start?
Sure. I think one of the most powerful things to do in the classroom with an interactive, display is, annotation. I mean, because when you're able to, take real time annotation and have that on the board for whatever it is that you're presenting in class. Yes, there's one level at which students are taking their own notes, but when they can have the actual notes that we're taking in class shared out to them, that is extremely powerful. Sometimes we can do that in our LMS, but sometimes it's not the case that we can take what's being written on a whiteboard and send that out to students as well. So that's extremely powerful. I think it's the underdog of all the features when it comes to whiteboard, interactive whiteboards in a classroom. And another thing is just, again, I think John has said it, just the power of collaboration, being able to have a student doing something on their screen and then that can be displayed to the whole class. That's something that I think teachers loved doing when we were all remote, and being able to now do that in the middle of class is something that is just, it's a game changer, because students, once again, they invest in their work when they know everyone's going to see all the hard work that I put into what I just did, and it's displayed, and then the teacher can easily toggle from one student to the next. So,
Awesome. Perfect. John, do you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. Just to reiterate something that Micah said earlier, is that a lot of these, it was app was the big thing. Now we're moving to a lot of web-based content for learning capabilities. I think a real powerful feature of of an interactive panel is to do the integration, seamless integration. What I mean by that is to where they can just launch a browser, go to whatever LMS system they may be using, open that up, and then be able to initiate their classroom and start their classroom directly from the board, not having to go back to a PC, configure it that way, then cast it back out. And then secondly, to have the students to be able to seamlessly integrate or go to the content. For example, from their laptop, just to go to the web-based content, to be able to log into that class, whether they're local within the classroom, or maybe they're in a hybrid situation with some students still working from home, or God forbid, if we move back to that solution. So a seamless web-based portal to be able to integrate and gain that the lesson plan. And again, as Anthony said, I think one of the real powerful tools is the overlay annotation, just to be able to start making notes and be able to share that back with students as well.
Awesome. Perfect. And you, Micah?
Yeah, I'll pick up where John left off. Again, talking about annotations from Anthony. Annotations are really, really powerful. I coached some middle school sports for a few years, and I would always have a whiteboard of a basketball court, or a whiteboard of a soccer field, and be annotating with my Expo marker. Well, now interactive displays, if used properly, can do the same work with esports, where I can plug in an HDMI input, cast a gaming device, and overlay right over the top of it, take screenshots, and share that with my students to coach them just like I would any other traditional sport. I think that's pretty powerful, and it's using a very simple, basic tool that should be easy to learn, very fast, pick up a pen and go. If annotation is difficult to learn how to do on an interactive board, then you have the wrong interactive board. I'm pausing for dramatic effect. The other thing I really want to talk about is the power of modeling. And so for a teacher to model how to do something is really, really important. So if I want to model how to code, like block coding, where it snaps together like magnets, I want to be able to model it and have some diagramming of my steps in one spot. So a web browser that can appear like a picture-in-picture next to a whiteboard on one screen is really, really powerful. That way there's no cognitive loss when I switch between devices and I go from my whiteboard to my app or my website and then back and forth. We want that all in one place so students can see all the steps necessary to fulfill all of those tasks as successfully as possible. And we'll find that with good interactive panels. The other thing that should be really basic is to think of these interactive displays as a second computing device. And for the average classroom teacher, that's like pure joy. If you're saying, I'm giving you another computing device, I'm giving you another device to use in your classroom, not just to tether yours on, which is great, but also another device that's pretty attractive, and it allows them to multitask and use other tools that they want to be using on the side, not necessarily right in front of the students. And then finally, there's some really cool technology that I'm just starting to learn about, like Dex. It's a Samsung thing that allows you to cast an app off your phone, and the app becomes interactive. So think Apple AirPlay, but once it's on the device, it's interactive and I can touch it. It's pretty cool. It allows you to use tools like augmented reality for modeling of three-dimensional assets, also to cast virtual reality devices, which are using similar Google Cast type technology to cast to the board, allow students to engage in these normally single user experiences. So technology, like we said earlier, that can scale up is really important. Having an infrastructure in place that's simple, easy to use, but allows teachers to really geek out and take it to the next level is really, really important.
Awesome. And I actually want to build off of that last question. If you are interested in, like, so something I'd like to hear is, we're talking about some unique ways to integrate, technology and things like that. Are you seeing any, schools that are using technology in this way? Like, you're bringing up a lot of great points what schools can do, but are you seeing anything on the school level where they're doing something unique that really caught your eye?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of products out there that are making it very easy to teach coding. Code.org is an organization that has a whole system in place for students to learn, sometimes done with manipulatives, robots that you code, and through your Wi-Fi network, you send it commands for those to work. Yeah, we're seeing that widespread. And we just want to make that good practice even more amplified through good hardware.
Awesome. Cool. I don't know, John, Anthony, if you have any cool examples like that, real world examples that you're seeing out there. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, to be honest, I've been spending more time in PD with teachers, and I'm actually in the process of getting things going where I get to go back and now see them using the technology and in their classroom and how they're planning on utilizing it. I've heard a lot of great ideas from teachers, but being able to actually see it happen is something that I'm working on doing. So hopefully I have some feedback for you in the future regarding that, and I'm sure that I will. So yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. So now we have come to the audience Q&A portion of our webinar here today, where you can now send in your questions. So Micah, Anthony, and John, they can answer your questions live on the air. If you haven't already, you can send in your questions by going to the lower right-hand side of your screen and clicking on Q&A panel. It's the option next to the chat button. If you can't see it, there should be 3 dots or an ellipses next to the chat button. Click on that, and that should bring you to the Q&A. All right, so I'm pulling that up here. So first question that came in from one of our audience members. Is it better to utilize cloud-based OS versus not, like such as Google versus the current Macs or Windows, to ensure software is lasting? Or does that not really matter in your opinion?
That's a loaded question. It's very dangerous.
Yes, it is.
There are schools and IT directors that are very heavily focused on one platform or the other, and we want to make sure we do a great job of allowing them to choose. And no matter which they choose, we have the hardware that's going to amplify their efforts to do great things. Do you like how I skirted that totally?
Awesome. All right, let's see. So another question that came in also, in your opinion, when it comes to creating new software and programs, how often are educators included in the discussion of the creation? So this person who sent in the question, they're saying a lot of times they see software being developed and being pushed into the education sector without actually getting input from educators. Yeah, I'd be interested in hearing your answer there.
Yeah. So I can speak to it from a product perspective. For example, Samsung is in the interactive space. It was kind of late to the game, but a lot of our feedback and product enhancements and applications and software are direct feedback that we get from the educators. So a lot of the PD folks like Anthony, they're out in the field. They will bring that information back into us, and then we funnel it back to make sure that our product, not only from a hardware perspective, but also from a software perspective, can meet the requirements of the educator or the teachers.
I mean, just in case you saw my face expressions there, I just think it's an amazing question, because it's one of those things that you would just assume that, of course, the voice of the teacher would matter. I'm proud to say that when it comes to Samsung, the voice of the teacher does matter. That again, it's one of the greatest things about what I get to do. Yes, I am providing PD, but I'm also listening, and the listening is productive because I'm able to take what I hear and I bring it back. And they go, you know what? Let's do that because this teacher wants this new math tool or something like that, right? And that's extremely powerful. That's something that's going to grow with you, right? And you're making suggestions, and those things are appearing. So it's a beautiful thing, and I don't really hear about that, anyplace else too often. So.
No, and to reiterate the point that both of you have raised, I've been in the space before my time at Samsung in ed tech, and there are plenty of look at this amazing thing I created. Now shove it into education, and that kind of thinking is counterintuitive. You would think that voice of the customer would be first, especially when you're talking about prototypes. Samsung has a tradition of listening to customers with all the products for decades. They brought that same mantra into education. And now in education, like Anthony said, we listen to what teachers need. We make changes to give teachers what they want. We are excited when they value our simple user interface, but we also are responsive to when they say, hey, it would be a little better if it did this.
Definitely, for sure. Now I do have a few more questions that I'll be asking, but for those of you who still haven't asked a question, please feel free to utilize this time while I ask the last few questions to put in any of your own in the Q&A, and we'll get to them if we have time. All right, another question that came in here. So this person's saying, classrooms still have, chalkboards, whiteboards, and projectors, due to the comfort of current devices. Can one of you explain, why an educator should consider transitioning to newer technology?
So
Good
when
question.
in my classroom, when I decided to go paperless, I was a paperless teacher 4 years before COVID. I had to make a decision about if I go paperless, is this going to make me more efficient at grading papers and giving feedback to students? Or is it going to make me less efficient and take more time away from my family, keeping me at school, not allowing me to get home? And so efficiency became a really important part of my choice to adopt the strategy of being paperless. That same concept applies to interactive displays. Educators do great things with chalk. They do great things with expo markers. So we need something that's simple for them to continue with good practice, but will allow them to scale up to meet their students' needs and to understand that part of what they're doing in the classroom is not just continuing good practice, it's creating new practice that will help prepare their students for their future, which is quite different than our past.
Not much to add to that. I just wanted that was the same thought that I had as far as where are your students going? The world that they're going into is not filled with chalk, right? It's everything is interactive, and that's what they have. And again, it was one of the first questions that we had. It's just the idea of like a student is going to invest themselves in what they're doing in class when you're echoing what they see in their world and in their culture. Right now, technology is their culture. Right? And so that's where we need to move. But just like Micah said, it has to be better than your chalkboard, or at least equal to, or better than your chalkboard, equal or better than your current whiteboard. And so it's like it's up to the teacher to test that out and figure out, is that true? Is it allowing me to do what I was able to do plus? And I think it's an easy decision for teachers once they get their hands on it and are allowed to kind of explore and play around.
Yeah, just to add to that piece, I mean, traditional whiteboards, projectors, it's technology that's been in the classroom for a while. Teachers know how to use it. They've been using it, but a lot of that is just one directional. So it's just a teacher using a projector to cast information up onto a screen, or the teacher to be up on a whiteboard. I think with the interactive space, when it's coming in, it's really fostering that collaboration to where the teachers could be, engaged with the students, and the students could use their devices to be able to cast and engage with the teacher. And then it also opens up, the capability. I mean, it's connected, so teachers can use it, go collect information right on the fly, bring that information to their students in real time and be able to discuss, versus for them having to go back to the laptop and, look for information and then cast it back up there. So I think it fosters collaboration.
Awesome. Perfect. We have another fun question here. What are the benefits to replacing an entire ecosystem with interactive displays? I am interested to hear this one for sure.
The word ecosystem is the important part there. For ecosystem, I think of an entire classroom hardware setup, which would include laptops or Chromebooks, tablets, and interactive. If we're talking about a school looking to change from a projector model to an interactive display, it's a little bit different story, but it's really, really important. It's important to think about how the existing technology that they're going to keep is going to communicate or work with the new technology being brought in, because schools can't afford to wipe out the entire ecosystem. It's very often pieces at a time. And so having technology in mind that's going to allow them to work with what they have while they plan for the future is really important.
Awesome. Perfect. Any of you want to add to that, or that was a pretty
Yeah.
good answer?
No, that's an excellent answer from Micah, but I'm looking at it more from an IT perspective. So with traditional components like whiteboards or projectors, whenever you had failures, techs had to come out, replace the bulb or something like that. A lot of these new interactive displays that are coming out, they're actually integrated. What I mean from integration is that they can be centralized, administered. So if there is an issue or if there is a problem, have the ability to remotely log into that device to be able to make configurations. And then to take it one step further, a lot of emergency management, emergency notification systems, a lot of these boards can integrate into that. So if you do need to send out an emergency alert with, say, bad weather or something like that, you have that capability to do that from a remote locations versus projectors might not provide that functionality for you.
Not much to add. I just wanted to say, the word that came to mind when you guys were speaking was just flexibility, right? And the idea that, a teacher does not have to reinvent the wheel now that something new has come into the class. They can kind of hold on to certain things that they've already done, and then they can slowly add newer practices. It's not a complete overhaul, right? Because then it would be overwhelming, or then it will be, something that it would be a turnoff, right, for teachers. And so it's one of those things where it allows the teacher to go at their own pace, and then get to the place of, okay, what else do I want to add? What else do I want to do? Do I really need to do what I was doing back then? That kind of a thing, helping that transition to be comfortable.
And also that, this transition from the IT department needs to be articulated. The advantage needs to be articulated. We can't just drop technology on people's lap and assume that they understand the value. I'll go back to my paperless classroom example. I calculated that I saved myself 42 hours every school year standing at the photocopier. Standing there, hit start and watch the copies come out. So there's an automatic advantage to articulate to a teacher. We often complain we don't have enough time in the classroom. Well, here's a free gift. You now have 42 hours back to you. So if we think about interactive displays or new technology in schools, we need to think about articulating how this is going to really help people. And some of it might be obvious to an IT director. It may not be to a teacher.
Perfect. That's quite a 42 hours. That's quite a bit for sure. So those are all of the questions that were submitted in our live Q&A. That said, as I go through my closing slides in just a few moments, if during that time any questions pop into your head while I'm doing that, please feel free to continue submitting those questions while I go through those slides, and I'll make sure that they're sent over to our friends over at Samsung so they can be answered at some point in the future. But first off, thank you again to all three of you, Anthony, Micah, and John, for your time here today. And of course, thank you to Samsung. And to you, our audience, of course, I would also like to thank you for joining us today as well. For those of you who particularly enjoyed what you saw today, you'll be pleased to know there are many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by us here at District Administration, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, as well as trends and current issues in K through 12. We have a wide range of readers who subscribe for free to DA, such as yourselves, and they stay up to date with us in our print magazine, as well as all of our work we do online, our newsletters, and web seminars like this one. Also, if you would like to watch this web seminar again, or for those of you who believe that what you saw here would be helpful to your colleagues, which I'm sure that is the case, you will be pleased to know that our team here at DA, we will be sending you an email at some point later tomorrow. And in that email, it will include an on-demand recording of this web seminar, as well as a link to the slides. So with that, on behalf of DA, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone. Take care, be well, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.